Hey everyone, welcome back, or if you're just joining us, welcome to KSSP Podcast. I'm Spencer.
And I'm Katie.
And in this episode of our Difficult Conversation series, we're going to be going over some common pitfalls when having a difficult conversation.
Yeah, so what prevents us from having success with these difficult conversations? Emotions, for one, can hinder our response to where we don't think rationally. So, according to the Cleveland Clinic, adrenaline or epinephrine is a hormone your adrenal glands make to help you prepare for stressful or dangerous situations. Adrenaline rush is the name for the quick release of adrenaline in your bloodstream. This gets your body ready for a fight or a flight response by activating your sympathetic response. And the brain diverts blood away from higher level reasoning sections of our brains and is triggered by activation of the fear centers, or the amygdala and hypothalamus, in our brains. So the body is preparing for an attack because that's what it feels like is happening to the body when we have to approach these difficult conversations. I mean, that's what the feeling of nervousness is. It's that adrenaline being released. Well, that's part of it. It's not the whole thing, but it definitely contributes to that. So another pitfall is silence. So masking consists of understanding and selectively showing our true opinions. So things like sarcasm, sugarcoating, staying silent, basically holding back the true expression of ourselves to appease others. And avoiding involves steering completely away from the sensitive subjects. We talk, but without addressing the real issues. This includes things such as passive-aggressive statements, jokes, sarcasms, and more. So withdrawing means pulling out of the conversation altogether. We either exit the conversation or exit the room. This is another form of avoidance. And it is okay if you are in the conversation and you need to step aside for a break, but you need to come back and readdress the situation once you calm down, and the other person is as well. And finally, we often resort to silence because it just feels like the easier option. We'd rather keep dealing with the issue than have a difficult conversation. But as long as we stay silent, the issues will continue to go unchecked, and any bad actors will not be held accountable.
Another pitfall that we may fall victim to in having difficult conversations is violence. And that can be controlling the conversation. So that could be coercing others to our way of thinking by speaking in absolutes, overstating facts, using directive questions to control the conversation, cutting people off, or changing subjects. Another tactic of violence that we may fall victim to is, or even end up doing ourselves, is labeling as a way to dismiss. And that could be using labels as a way to dismiss the thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and experiences of others. And then attacking also falls under violence. And personal attacks are another way that we can poison the conversation. It makes the other person less receptive to what you have to say, as invalidating their experience. It is tempting to attack others in difficult conversations, but the satisfaction gained is fleeting and unhealthy. And another pitfall is that we can feel under pressure during a difficult conversation, because sometimes these difficult conversations may feel spontaneous in a way, giving us no time to really prepare for them. But there are ways to plan ahead for these kind of conversations. And then there also may be a lot at stake with these kinds of conversations. Could end in conflict or with the person leaving our lives, and there is a choice to be made in this situation. Do the consequences really outweigh the benefits, or are we just being held back by fear?
And then another pitfall is when you're feeling like stumped, stuck, frozen in the conversation. And whether it's because you haven't had much practice with these kinds of conversations or haven't seen good role models. And you may have seen a lot of bad examples, so you know what not to do, but that doesn't really tell you what to do in the situation. It just tells you what to avoid. And so you might not even know where to start. And sometimes we feel stuck during these conversations, like we don't even know where to begin or end the conversation. This is why it's important to keep our goals in mind and plan ahead for the conversation and for the multitude of directions the conversation may take. If you think someone might potentially start a difficult conversation with you, it's best to figure out what your feelings and goals are for the conversation accordingly. We can't always predict when this is going to happen, but if we think about how others feel about our actions, we can best plan for these conversations to lead to us meeting our goals.
We may also act in self-defeating ways, which could be passive aggressiveness or subtly implying something negative without directly saying it, so that there is room for doubt of what the statement really meant. And another thing could be we end up talking behind people's backs instead of letting them know what's bothering us. And it's okay to vent to others, but doing so to besmirch them without actually planning to address the issues with them is not healthy, and it will lead to biases in those you're talking to.
Then we have the choice of telling the truth or keeping a friend, which sometimes you just feel so connected to that other person, you don't want to let go of the relationship, but if the behavior is causing issues in the relationship and they choose to leave instead of change, or if they just choose not to change and continue the behavior, not even attempt to change, is that the kind of friend you really want to keep around? Like, is this toxicity, is there a low enough level of toxicity where it's okay to keep your friend? Or is this something that's highly toxic and, is detrimental to your well-being and not helping you get your needs met from them?
And then we also have the pitfall of having the wrong goals or motives. Some of those situations could be where you are thinking, if we could just fix those losers, all would get better. But we have to understand that no one is capable of fixing someone who doesn't want to change. We can't control the action of others. We can only control our own actions and associations. And fixing people is a very complicated task that often requires self-motivation to change, along with outside help from others to hold people accountable, such as therapists, friends, and family, maybe even coworkers. And also with that statement, it's also important not to get into the mindset of thinking everyone else needs fixed and that you and your ideals are superior to others. So just kind of going both ways with that type. And then another pitfall under this category could be winning. So we often want to win the conversation. We want the immediate solution when often immediate solutions are temporary. So remember that change takes time, and if the other person isn't willing to change, we may have to let them go. Punishing, trying to punish the other person will not lead you to your goals, even if it seems to at first. People often find workarounds for the punishment and go back to their old behaviors anyways. Instead of punishment, it is best to focus on boundaries. As we mentioned before in a previous video, the best way to state a boundary is, if you do X, I will do Y. And then keeping the peace. It feels good to please others. However, pleasing others is not always the healthiest way to handle situations, as we often ignore our own needs in order to do this. It's important that you keep your own needs met, because if you can't help yourself, then you can't help others.
All right, so join us next time as we discuss how to have these conversations and why we want to work on our approach to them.
And as always, you can leave a comment below if you have any topic ideas that you want us to discuss in future episodes.
Yeah, you can reach out to us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And we also occasionally Twitch live streams, so follow us on there to be notified.
And don't forget to give this video a like, as well as follow or subscribe to our other social media accounts and turn on notifications there so that you get notified when our new content comes out. Otherwise, we will see you all in the next video.